What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm super excited about this video. In this video, it's a little different, but we're gonna be prepping and showing you how we prep a lighting rig based off of a design for an event. And so we're gonna go through all the steps from the design, the documents, building the rig, prepping it, loading it in, and actually doing the show. So I wanna show you everything that we would do to design and prep a rig for any event that you need. Honestly, this is a video I wish I had 10-15 years ago when I started doing lighting. So I hope that this is super helpful. It's gonna be a two-part video. First part, we're gonna jump into the design suite with Andrew. We're gonna talk all about design. All right, we are here in the design suite with our lead designer, Andrew, and we're gonna talk through the design for Holy Spirit Conference. This is our second year doing this, so we've had a little bit of experience with Bridgetown, but there's 4 key points that we wanted to talk through for this design. One being, we gotta fill a venue that has nothing in it. 2, we want it to be simple yet creative. 3, we really want to translate Bridgetown's style into this design, and Andrew will talk about that. And then the 4th one being that it's a one-day load-in with a show that night. So doors are at 5 p.m. We kind of got to be up and ready to go by noon, so that way we can do all of the sound checks and things like that. So there's a few things that go into this design. So we're gonna let Andrew talk about, let's start with Bridgetown style and how we implemented that into this design, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty of all the other things that we have to do.
Okay, so Bridgetown is very simplistic with their production and style on stage. They have a white background on stage that they uplight with bars, and then they project lyrics onto that as well. And then it's just a static look the entire service, whatever they're doing. So with that, we wanted to bring that into their conference, which is in a different room. This year it's in a theater. Last year it was in a convention center. So last year we did one upstage straight curtain that we uplit and then projected lyrics on, also to mimic their church. This year we flanked the wings with some curtains at 45 to bring that feel around the stage. That way profile shots kind of get that white in the background, and also to bring the set a little bit more into the room so it's not so far away. We did the same thing with downlighting this time, the curtain with color wash, and then projected lyrics onto the screen as well. We also filled some black areas with some lights on the floor, on the sides, and then brought some lights into the house on the front of house truss so that we can wash the crowd with the same color look and have a little bit more control of the house. Sometimes theaters don't have great house control, so we wanted to be able to control that a little bit more.
And I will add, we added a few more lights than they usually would do, because one, this is Bridgetown's like one big event that they do every year, so it gives them a little bit more opportunity to be creative. But then 2, they don't stream Sundays. This is a streamed and a page streamed event, and so we wanted camera to look good, and so we did add a little bit more lighting just for camera's sake, to make sure that that looks good, because there are paid people watching this stream. So like Andrew said, and you see the pictures on the screen here, we really tried to mimic how Bridgetown looks in this venue. And also this venue has nothing in it, so we have to bring in everything: key light, crowd wash, stage wash, all that stuff. We have to bring all of it in, and so that's
the scrims, the projection, all that.
Yeah, everything. The venue doesn't have anything that could accomplish this. One thing to note is that this design wasn't the first design, and I'll actually pop some screenshots up here of the first one. It kind of went through like 2 to 3 different revisions of what this turned out to be. But do you want to talk through a little bit of like where you started and then kind of how it got to this specific design?
Yeah. So initially I tried to use as many of the theater battens as possible to save on rigging costs. But when we found out we have to load in the same day, that played into it and changed kind of the whole thing. Their creative team had this idea of a whole curved curtain around the stage. And so we went into details about how curved is just more custom and costly. So we ended up kind of with this straight curved-ish. It's still wrapping the stage, but it's straight hard lines and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, ultimately when you're going through revisions of designs like this, there's a few main factors that play into that. One, being creative and like what we think looks good, what the client wants the set to look like, and how they want it to feel. Length of how long you can load something in. Sometimes there just is a limit to how much you can do in a day. And then 2, budget. Budget always plays a factor into how much you can do with a design like this. And so we're always trying to play that middle ground of like, we want it to look good, we want it to hit the budget, and then we also, on this one, have to be able to get it in. So we knew doing a curve, 1, would cost more money, and then 2, take longer to put up, versus doing 3 hard lines, like Andrew mentioned, is a lot faster and cost effective for something like this. So that's kind of what plays into a design process when you're going like this. And we went back and forth with their team a lot.
Yeah, we always try to kind of dream big first, give them the big picture design, and then can kind of scale back or even elevate from there depending on those factors you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But ultimately it got pretty simple on this one, but still allowed for some creativity, and overall it's a good look.
Yeah, and we'll throw some videos of the live stream here, but then also at the whole end of this video you can see some of the live stream that we filmed, and it looks great on camera. It's nice and washy. In the room it feels really good, it feels big, it feels full. It doesn't feel like there's too much separation, and that's definitely part of the goal. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it still feels like Bridgetown, and that was the feedback that we got doing the event, was that it feels like Bridgetown in a different room.
Yeah. And even playing into the haze conversation, they don't do haze, and they didn't want haze for this either. And that's why we have to kind of create a bigger backdrop almost with lighting and scrims, all that. That way it fills the black areas and doesn't feel as dark. And so instead of using haze to fill some of that space, it's just more scrims or lights in that scenario. So
you kind of have to have more light if you don't want to do haze, but you can still achieve a really good look without haze. Let's move into talking about loading in one day or in like 4 or 5 hours. And so you'll see later on in this video actually how we prep it, but that plays into how you design too. When you're thinking through this, you have to think through all those parts before we even send it out to quote or even get it into the shop to start prepping. So like, what are some of the things that you did here thinking through, we have to load it in 5 hours?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, and this is what touring uses all the time, is GT truss or pre-rig truss. It's truss on wheels that allows you to mount lights and cabling to the truss already. That way in transport, it's all ready to go. You roll it into the venue, hook it all together, and fly it up. And so that was kind of the pinnacle point of this one, since we had the loading in a day, like a tour, and have a show that night.
So once we got the information of like, we gotta load in one day and do that, that's where you instantly flip to like, okay, tour style, let's use GT truss. And that's where we started talking about using truss and motors, not using their line sets, because line sets can take a long time in the theater, having to reweight them and all that kind of thing. And then being able to get the angles. It's once you go to like this angle thing, you can't really use their line sets, because then you start crossing line sets and that becomes a problem. And so realistically, to do something like this in a theater, it's truss and motors, and then to make it faster. So in this design, talk through like how many trusses that you're doing, and then like the side fixtures and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's just 1 upstage truss and then 2 angled trusses coming from upstage to downstage. Create that seamless line, and then 1 front house or downstage truss for key light and crowd wash, also to mount a projector on. Because again, we wanted as few trusses as possible and also cram as much on those trusses as possible. Floor fixtures are easy. You just lay those on the floor. We had some side ladder coming off those trusses to put lights on the sides. But ladders is a pretty quick and easy way to have a vertical line of lights.
Yeah, That's also a type of truss technically, is just like, it's like a ladder truss essentially. And you can hang lights and they're adjustable. Different manufacturers make something like that. So talk through the fixture types and like what you're using for what and how that plays into the design here.
So for downlighting the curtain, we're using JDCs for that. It's one of my favorite fixtures personally. They have great color. They're a big even wash, no harsh beams or anything like that.
There's basically no lens on it. If you've never seen it, it's
almost like an LED
light.
tile.
Yeah.
But also allows for some movement with like dimming chases because they're all pixel controlled. So that played into the creativity of this part. Also doing like gradient moving colors, stuff like that.
They're also extremely bright. And so putting them 20, 30 feet in the air and shooting down, they have enough brightness to light the curtain and honestly light the stage too.
Yeah, the whole bands, vocals, all that.
Yep.
Then we use some X4 washes, also by GLP, to flank the floor of the stage to create kind of a practical light on camera, but also another form of wash on the band. Also on the sides too of the curtain to fill just some more black space. We also put JDCs on the front of house truss for crowd wash. That way it's just an even wash in the crowd, but it matches on stage as well. Then we use Martin Vipers for key light and hair light. We love to use lamp fixtures still for key light, it just has a more natural look on the skin. And then the last thing is the projector. We used a 30K, I believe it was a Panasonic laser projector for this. It was a long throw, so that's why we wanted that 30K brightness. Also competing with the downlight on the scrim, we wanted lyrics to be able to punch through.
Yeah. That was a key thing, is making sure, because we're not using LED tiles for this, is like we have a bright enough projector that can punch through all of the other light that's happening on stage and still look good. We are probably, what, 50 feet, 60 feet from the curtain, all said and done. And that 30K Panasonic definitely did its job to punch through all the other light on stage. And
they ended up putting in some announcement slides, some countdown timers, all that. And that also just gave flexibility, having that projector and the whole surface to project on.
So once a design like this is complete, Andrew takes more time in CAD to, again, make sure that we can load in time and everyone's happy. He makes rigging plots that we have to send to the venue, and we'll pop a screenshot here so you can see like what that looks like. But you gotta have your rigging plot. That gets sent to the venue ahead of time so that way they can approve all the rigging looks good. And in our case, we did have to move the front of house truss a couple times to where they were happy with it, with the amount of weight and where we could do it in the room. So rigging plots are a big deal, knowing where every motor is gonna go, and the venue signs off on that beforehand. But then also he's making the fixture plots with addresses, fixture IDs, all that stuff. He's doing that all ahead of time. So that way when we get to the prep phase, which is the next part of this video, we have that documentation to where Andrew technically could not even be there, and myself and David or whoever else could actually finish the build on our own. There's that much documentation, and that just goes into being able to load this in and have it up in time. So you'll see in the next part of the video, but we put all the fixtures on, we address them all, we cable them all, we make sure that they're all plugged into the right universe. Even the floor fixtures that aren't on truss, they all get address tested, the whole thing. But all of that stems from this design phase where Andrew is building those plots and building that all out ahead of time, so that way we know what we're doing when we get into the prep phase. And then when we even get into the load-in phase, all the techs and people that we have there with us also have that documentation, so they can see what this looks like, where all the trusses go, what trusses plug into what universe. It's all documented. So again, there's zero questions, and it just speeds the load-in process up significantly, having all that documentation done.
Yeah, and even in the scenario where we're not pre-rigging in the shop, even having that documentation on the ground, if we even had a full day of load-in, that documentation goes into that load-in. And so instead of The documentation for prep, it's just documentation for loading in on the ground.
100%. The first year that we did this, we had an entire day of load-in, but everything was still documented, and all of the techs had it to where they knew these fixtures go here, these are their addresses. All that was predetermined here, so when we get to the site, it actually speeds things up and there's way less errors.
Yeah.
It also helps with making sure that you have all your rentals in line to do it.
Yep. And there's still some changes that happen on site just because of scenarios you're not aware of.
Yep.
But these documentations get you pretty much like 90% there. And then there's a few tweaks you have to do on site.
Yep.
And again, we use Vectorworks for all that plotting and initial design work. And then you can publish plots from there, and then we export to Depends right now for pre-vising.
So now from this design suite, we talked through the design, how we did it, some of the things that we think about when we're working with this client specifically, but it translates to whatever client that you have. But then now we're gonna jump into the shop with all the gear, and we're gonna show you actually how we prep it all before we get it to the venue. And that wraps up talking about the design phase for an event. So the next video, make sure you check it out. It'll be linked down below. We are going to jump into the warehouse and we're gonna show you how we actually prep all the gear. This is the fun part. We'll get all the cables, all the gear, power, everything that you need to know. So make sure you check out the next video, link down below, and we'll see you in the next one.